Hey Arctic Warriors, what's up? Arctic Phoenix here, and we are going to predict the college football playoff bracket. Okay, we're the first matchup we're predicting is Clemson versus Texas. Yeah, I mean Clemson is a three-loss team, but they got some quality wins here, uh, like Virginia Tech, South Carolina, and of course in the SEC championship game against SMU. But they got some good quarterback play and like Cade Kubiak, who has a 106.3 NFL style passer rating. They got Antonio Williams and Brent Wisco, who's as their top two receiving targets. Phil Mufa is a really good running back as well. He averaged over 1,000 yard. He actually over 1,000 yards in season, and they got like 35.5 points per game. They allow 22.3, which is a bit high, but facing Texas, they got a good two-headed monster. Their main guy Quinn Ewers, he's got like a modest 101.8 passer rating, 25 touchdowns, a bit high in the picks with 9. I mean, they got a really good defense, allowing only 12.5 per game. They allowed just over 3,000 total yards in their 13 games. I mean, they do have they all can't beat Georgia then. Georgia and they got also have some quality wins over Arkansas, Florida, A&M, and Michigan. What they're in the SEC. What else do you expect? So I mean, Archman's a good quarterback for the future, and I think it will be enough to beat Clemson. So Tennessee, Ohio State. So this is, I think, going to be an interesting matchup. I think. I mean, of course, Tennessee beat Bama, and they got a really good. They scored a good 37.3 points per game, but they only allowed 13.9. I mean, they did allow quite a bit through the air, but their running defense is really good. I mean, they got a good quarterback in Nico Amadula, who has an NFL style pass rating of 105.4, and he's got 19 touchdowns and 5 picks. I mean, he did complete like 65.7%. I mean, they also have a good running back in Dylan Sampson, who has close to 1,500 yards, 22 rushing touchdowns, and average 5.8 yards per run. They also have a good receiving core with Dante Thornton, who's averaged 26 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns. Brew McCoy, who who has added 2 touchdowns, and Miles Kitzman, who only has 21 catches for 200 yards, but he has like 4 touchdowns. And so, yeah, they got some pretty good weapons on. And of course, Ohio State. I mean, Will Howard's a really good quarterback. I mean, and statistically, they're a really good team. I mean, they beat teams like they did beat Indiana and Iowa and Penn State this year, so they got some good wins. But they did lose some key games, like to Oregon and to Michigan, which kept them out of the Big Ten championship this year. They got two really good running backs in like Quinshawn Jilkins and Henderson, who got 805 touch rushes and 8 touchdowns. Like Jilkins got 805 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns, and Henderson got touchdowns. So they got a good two-headed monster, but they don't really have that much depth. I mean, Fielding is a decent kicker. He's a kick 9 of 12, but he has not been too active. I mean, he is between 30 and 39 yards. I mean, he also, however, he's a solid kicker as well, but even at makes him get over 50 yards. So I'm gonna go with Tennessee. Nah, I'm not. I'm not making my prediction. I don't know why I picked SMU but Tennessee. And by the way, the Clemson game I predict to be 31-20 Texas and 10-21, and then SMU, SMU, boy, Penn State. This is going to be an interesting matchup, I think. I mean, Kevin Jennings is a really good quarterback. I mean, he made 66% of his passes for 3,000 yards, and he's got 22 touchdowns and 8 picks. They got a good backup as well in Preston Stone, who has 58% passing, but he's got 5 touchdowns and a pick. So, and he has a higher passer rating. They do have a good running back in Brashad Smith, who's got 1,370 rushing yards, average 6.3 yards per carry, and 14 touchdowns. And they got a very deep receiving core right there. I think they have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys with at least 300 yards passing, and 7 of them got multiple touchdowns. So they're pretty deep at receiver. And they do have wins over Louisville. They did beat Louisville, and they're only to TCU, but their 2 losses came to BYU and their ACC title game. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder, especially considering the fact that they are being there. That people think Bama deserves a spot in playoff over them, and they have a good offense, averaging 38.5 points per game. Penn State, I don't know about them. I don't know about Penn State. I mean, on paper, they are a good team, averaging 33.5 points per game, allowing 16.4 points per game. I mean, they have a solid quarterback in Drew Aller. Like, he's averaged like 9.1% passing, so he is an accurate quarterback. 21 touchdowns and 7 picks, which is 7 picks a bit concerning. They do have a good backup quarterback in VRBO Pagula, who's averaged 74.3%, who might have a higher ceiling. They have a good run. They do have a good 1-2 punch at running back with Nicholas Singleton and Allen, who's both of them have over 800 yards and combined for 13 touchdowns. And even Aller and Pagula are solid runners in their own right, combining for over 500 yards and 10 touchdowns. They do have a good 1-2 punch at receiver as well with Tyler Warren and Harrison Wallace. I mean, their tight end Tyler Warren, who probably will be playing in the NFL next year, they get over 1,000 receiving yards and touchdowns. So, and also they have a good kicker in Ryan Barker, who is pretty accurate, but he struggles but he's only shot 1 of 5 pass, but he's 4 for 7 with on kicks 40 yards or more. So yeah, I think SMU is gonna pull off the upset here, 27-24. Indiana versus Notre Dame. The Indiana school squaring off here. I mean, they do have a good. I mean, statistically, Indiana's a really good team. I mean, they got 43.3 yard points per game now. It's 14.7, which is really good statistically. And they have Curtis Rourke, who's completed over 70, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I mean, he's completed over 70% of his passes, 27 touchdowns, only 4 picks, with an NFL style passer rating of 127.3. And Tevin Jackson, who is a capable backup here, averaging 27, he averaged 9.4 yards per attempt, close to Rourke's 9.8. He got 4 touchdowns and a pick, so he's a good backup to have. Justice Ellison is a running back running over 800 yards and scoring 10 touchdowns with 5.5 rushing yards. And Tyson Lawton is also pretty good in his own right, getting 634 yards and scoring 12 touchdowns. Also, Elijah Skirley and Omar Cooper are both their top receivers, catching 49 passes, 809 yards, and they do have a really accurate kicker, Nicholas Ruderick, who is 9 for 10 kicking. However, Notre Dame, I think will be. However, I think Notre Dame can beat them. I mean, yeah, they're passing. They do have a solid passing. They don't really have as good of a kicker, and their quarterback Riley Leonard isn't the best quarterback, but they do have a really good two-headed monster at running back, and Jeremiah Love and Riley Leonard, Love, who has 949 yards, Leonard, who their quarterback is 714 touchdowns, so he is a dual-threat quarterback. Plus, they have quality wins over A&M, Louisville, USC. Like, they beat some. I mean, they may not be as good statistically as Indiana, but they have faced tougher competition this year. I mean, they do have a really good spread out pass receiving core with Collins, Greathouse, none of them got over 500 yards, all of them, but they are pretty spread out on that front. So yeah, I'm gonna go pick Notre Dame in this matchup. Final score 28-14. Texas versus Arizona State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. I mean, they are going to be without one of their Arizona State will be without one of their star running back defenders for the first half due to what happened in the Big 12 championship game. But I'm not sure if it really matters that much. I mean, they do have. I mean, they are going to be a sneaky good team. And I mean, they do have quality wins over Kansas State, the Big 12 title game, and Indiana State. And they do have a really good freshman quarterback in Sam Levitt. 192 passing yards, 363% pass with an NFL style pass rating of 110.7, which isn't bad for a freshman. And they do have Cam Scatterbrew, who is a really good, who will probably be in the NFL next year. I mean, 1,568 rushing yards and 19 touchdowns. Not Gentry numbers, but he's still solid in his own right. And they don't really have that good of a kicker, Ian Harsley, who isn't too accurate past 30 yards. So I do think Texas is going to beat them. I think it's going to be a blowout, and they're going to the Cotton Bowl. Tennessee, Oregon. I mean, like I said, I think Tennessee is going to struggle a bit against Oregon. Oregon hasn't lost a game this year. They beat Ohio State and they beat Penn State this year. Two two of the two other teams that are in the playoff. And also they got really good quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, who has completed over 72% of his passes for 26 picks. I think he's underrated as a quarterback. I think he definitely deserves respect. Jordan James is a good running back. He's got over 1,200 yards and 5 point yard rush touchdowns. I mean, Tez Johnson, 866 yards and touchdowns. I mean, Oregon does have receivers over 500 yards, and they do have a good kicker in Atticus Stapleton, who's made 14 of 16 field goals, and he's even 3 for 4 from between 40 49 yards. So pretty accurate kicker. I mean, really not much weaknesses for them. However, I think Tennessee is going to give Oregon a run for their money, and I think Oregon's winning this matchup. SMU Boise State. I mean, we already know SMU is a sleeper team, and because of how deep their passing attack is, how good their rushing attack is, and how that. But the thing is, as much as I like Boise State, I'm not sure if they're able to keep up with SMU. I mean, they do have Gentry, who is a Heisman finalist, and who's got close to 20, who's got close to 2,500 rushing yards, 7.3 touchdowns, and their passing attack's kind of underrated as well. I mean, Maddox Matson isn't the most accurate quarterback, but he does get a lot of touchdowns. But I do think, and their kicker is pretty accurate, but I don't think it's enough to keep up with SMU. As much as I like Boise State and as much as I want to see them make a run, I'm going SMU. Notre Dame, Georgia. Originally, I was going to pick Georgia to win this matchup really, because their pedigree, they got Kirby Smart, they have beaten Texas. But I don't know if I really trust them with Gunnar Stockton. I mean, they do have a good two-headed attack with Nate Frazier and Trevor Etienne, but they both average close to 5 yards per run, and they combine for 17 touchdowns. But however, this Georgia team is a bit, and they do have a good kicker in Wolring, who is pretty accurate. So they do check a lot of the boxes. Like, there really isn't much weakness. I mean, honestly, if I knew Carson Beck is gonna be on this team, I'd pick them to win. But I do not know if I can trust Stockton that much. I mean, it really depends here. I mean, if Beck is back, then I'm definitely picking Georgia. But for now, I'm actually going with the upset pick, Notre Dame. I mean, they do have a really good head coach in their own right, who is getting courted by Ohio State and even the Chicago Bears in the NFL. I have more confidence with Notre Dame here. I'm gonna pick them. Texas, Oregon. This is gonna be a tight game, I think. I mean, Texas, like I said, they got Quinn Ewers. They're statistically one of the best defenses in college football, but they just don't have the quality wins. Like, they don't have. I mean, they beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma hasn't been that good. Florida. I mean, Florida just had a tough schedule. That's why their record isn't that good, and they beat A&M. But they just cannot win when it matters most. Like, Oregon, like, they're good. I mean, them beating Tennessee or Ohio State, I mean, they're battle tested and they've proven that they can beat the good teams. And like I said, I trust like Gabriel more than I trust yours, to be quite honest with you. I mean, and they're just a much more complete team than Texas. I'm going with Oregon. SMU versus Notre Dame. I'll be honest, I want SMU to win this game. I mean, like I said, they have a very versatile passing attack. But the problem is they don't have and probably more versatile than Notre Dame. But I think Notre Dame is just a much more balanced team. Like they got dual threat quarterback Riley Leonard. They got Jeremiah Love, who's a great runner in his own right. And I mean, plus they have more experience winning in big games. I mean, like I said, they got A&M, Louisville, and USC beat three teams who are all FBI top 20 teams. So I'm going with Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, Oregon in the national championship game. Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame being in the national championship game, I think is a insane prediction. But I think that, and I do think that they belong in the national championship fight. But I do not think they could. I do think they can beat Georgia. I do think they can beat SMU and potentially beat Penn State if it comes to that. But Oregon is, I think it's their year this year. I think Oregon's going. They're a, they're a much more complete team. They haven't lost a game. They can beat the best. They can beat the best teams. They got a much better kicking game. I just don't see. I mean, and Oregon is going to have and they're going to be much more battle tested, considering that they're either going to have to beat Tennessee or Ohio State and potentially Texas to get to this point. I think this is Oregon's national championship to lose. I'm picking them. This is their and I think the final score is going to be 31-21 Oregon. So 52 points will be my tiebreaker. And Oregon State is going to be your 2024-2025 national champions. And that is my final answer. Thank you. Have a nice day. Peace.